MacVoices is sponsored by Smile and PDF Pen 9, the best way to do more with your PDF documents, including optical character recognition, search and replace, secure redacting, highlighting features, and much more. Get all the details and download a free trial at smilesoftware.com. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices at WWDC and AltConf in San Jose. I found Paul Kafasis just wandering around, looking shell-shocked after the keynote.
Aimlessly trying to figure out what's going on, exactly, yeah.
I've never thought of you as aimless, Paul.
Well, trying to figure out what's happening over what we've seen in the past couple days, so.
Absolutely. So, you came all the way out from the East Coast like I did. How's this event or all of the events been for you?
That's an interesting question. As compared to previous dubs or just in general?
Just in general. Yeah, I mean, is it worth the trip? Are you excited about when you're going home and what you've seen and what you've learned?
Well, so that's an interesting question because it moved this year. There was a lot of questions. Is it going to be worth it? Is it still going to be the same event? And obviously, the Apple half of it is still very much the same. Here's a lot of information, and you'll digest this and you'll look into it over the next week and month and months. But in terms of the city, San Francisco versus San Jose, and the other conferences like AltConf, it's definitely, I think Apple made a push to get a lot of that here, whereas a lot of it was organic in San Francisco. AltConf, I think, sprouted basically because Dub sold out and people needed something to do there if they didn't have a Dub badge, and it turned into this great thing. But then suddenly WWDC moves and you've got to say, all right, can we move with it, or will nobody show up? And I think Apple made a push to get a lot of that stuff here and sort of help bringing more than just their conference here, to bring all the sort of ancillary things. And I think it's worked pretty well. So we certainly got all the information we'd expect to get from Apple, but then there's all sorts of there's the Layers conference, there's AltConf, there's CocoConf here, so it's pretty vibrant right now, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and another great thing is it's all right here.
Yeah,
I mean, you literally are within 2 or 3 blocks of each other.
We're looking that way is Dub. AltConf's all around us. Layers is about 500 feet that way. So yeah, it's all very close.
And it always surprises me that because Dub obviously is the gorilla in the room, but there are plenty of people around here walking in AltConf walking around with Dub badges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing at Layers. Same thing at CocoConf. It's organic. People are really moving between them, getting what they need as opposed to just what somebody's feeding them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's healthy. I think it's good, and hopefully it will continue that way in the future.
Now, as we've said so many times, Rogue Amoeba is really known for its audio products. How did what you saw at the keynote affect your thinking about where Rogue Amoeba is and where you need to go?
I mean, the biggest thing we talked about it just a little bit before is the HomePod, and we'll see what happens there. It's still 7 months off, and it's this high-end audio device that can potentially work with Airfoil, our audio streaming solution, and then AirPlay 2, which Airfoil is an AirPlay tool, so we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do with AirPlay 2 and what we need to do with it. So it's right now we don't have any good answers because it's only been 2 days, and we're downloading the OSs still and analyzing all that, but it's certainly something where Apple being committed to music, as they have been for a decade now more, is a good thing for us because that's what our users are doing. So if they do more in the music space and leave some sort of things on the edge for us to also do, that's a good thing for us. But right now I'm sort of, you used the word shell shock before. I think that's a little too strong, but in general we're sort of trying to figure out how this will impact us, and we don't have any clear answers just yet, in part because Apple did something a little unusual and pre-announced a lot of stuff. The HomePod is something that doesn't compete with anything they have, so that Apple has. So they're saying, you know what, don't buy an Echo, don't buy a Google Home, wait 7 months and we'll have a great solution for you. So it makes sense to do it. But as a developer, I want to know what I'm dealing with, and I won't know for maybe 7 months, maybe a little sooner than that, we'll see. But it's something where we're sort of waiting to figure out exactly how this all will impact us.
This is not Steve Jobs' Apple anymore, clearly. I mean, you're seeing pre-announcements, you're seeing Apple at times seemingly react to public opinion.
Feedback.
Yeah, community opinion is a better term, yes. What do you make of that? I mean, I guess, is it a good thing? Is it a sign of Apple maturing, or is it a sign of the environment changing because now we have all these feedback and communication options that Apple can be either praised in or roasted in?
Yeah, that's a great point. That, like you said, Twitter, Facebook, any sort of way that feedback can be given. There's so much more now. You said the word matured. I don't know. They're a 40-year-old company, right? So is it something where, they finally figured out maybe we should tell people more about what we're doing? Or is it just something that, like I said, they've got a product that doesn't compete with anything they have. So if they pre-announce it, they're not losing sales. They're hoping to cost other companies sales. So it makes sense. It's a competitive advantage to say, hey, we're coming. And the iMac Pro is something where I think they know that they had a gap, and they currently have a gap, that people are looking for a very high-end machine, and they didn't really have anything to offer. They had the Mac Pro that came out several years ago and hasn't really been updated. Just got a tiny speed bump a couple months ago. And so it's something where, again, they're sort of not competing with anything that they currently have. It's probably going to hurt the Mac Pro sales for 6 months, but those weren't very good anyway, I think. So I think, if anything, I don't know that it's indicative of the future, that next year they'll also pre-announce a lot of things. I would be very surprised if next year they pre-announced anything. Or at the very least, I wouldn't be surprised if in a year from now they have a keynote with just as much hardware, but all of it is shipping then. Or they don't talk that much about hardware. I think it's something where we sort of got to a weird space where, like I said, one product that's not competing with anything they have, and another product that they know they have sort of a hole in their lineup as far as the high-end stuff goes. But I was talking with somebody about this. I was saying, the iPhone was pre-announced. The watch was pre-announced. It's all these things that don't have competition within their own company. So it makes sense to say, hey, we're coming, and wait for us and get excited about it. And I think it's obviously working around here. I don't know. I haven't seen the public reaction to the HomePod, and I would bet that a lot of people are saying, $350 for the same thing that Google Home does. That's a ripoff. But we're interested in it, and we want to see more about it. And in 7 months, when it's shipping, I think it'll be useful for them to have had that early feedback.
Well, being here, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of reviews of everything, but everything I've seen with the hands-on folks that have gotten with the HomePod just talk about how great the sound is, and that it is superior, obviously, to an Echo. It seems to beat out Google Home pretty easily.
Right.
It seems to even compare very favorably, if not better, than Sonos. So we'll see when we get our hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting, though, because I was speaking with some people, and we all talked about the iPod Hi-Fi, which was I think it was about 10 years ago, that they had it was a great speaker that you just docked your iPod with, and then your iPod would sound fantastic. And I don't know that I ever heard one, but I fully believe it sounded great. And I think it was, do you remember? I think it might have been $5.99.
It was expensive.
It was expensive, and this is less expensive than that and does more. But is it something that people will actually want, or is it going to turn into another product where they say, well, we tried and people didn't actually want that? I think it'll be interesting to see. And I don't know that it'll turn into a very large product, or it'll just be sort of an accessory that maybe they sell for several years, maybe they sell for a year and realize we're not going to bother with this. I think that's unlikely, but I don't know that it'll ever turn into anything. It's certainly not a new platform. It's not a new platform on the level of the watch or the TV, or so it's an interesting device. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with it.
It was especially interesting when Tim came on and introduced it and said, item number 6, the last thing. And there was anticipation in the room with the developers. And then he said it's going to focus on music. Mm-hmm. And you had a little bit of a groan, and because I think everybody wanted the quote-unquote Siri speaker.
Right.
Well, they got pretty much the Siri speaker. It just, the focus seems to be pushing it a little more in the music direction. There are a dozen reasons that they could have done, that for whichever direction, downplaying the Siri capabilities or upplaying Apple Music. But at the end of the day, we have something new here, and it feels good from a HomeKit perspective. It feels good from an Apple Music perspective. It just was marketed to us differently than I think any of us expected.
Right. Well, so I mentioned that it's not a full-fledged platform, but I think it's good for the ecosystem. So you mentioned HomeKit, and if this is the hub that lets you say, instead of finding your phone or talking to your watch if you have a watch, if you can just call out, turn on the lights or turn off the TV, whatever, raise the, turn up the heat, all these things that HomeKit does, but right now is a little clunky because you've got to pull out your phone and find the right, the right settings for the thing you want to do. If you can just say, 5 words, turn up the heat. It's 4 words. That's a lot more impressive, and it's good for the ecosystem because then there's developers that are going to make those thermostats, and there's developers that are going to make all these smart home-enabled devices. But it's not as obvious as if you say, "Hey, we've got tvOS. You can put apps on it. Go make apps." Like that's very clear. It's a whole platform that you can work with, and this is like I said, much more of an ecosystem sort of thing that I think will benefit everyone, but it's not as clear the things you can do with it right off the bat.
Okay, I saved my favorite question for you for last.
Okay.
Apple Store or App Store redesign. Because I know you have no opinions about the app stores at all.
App Store in general. Well, is there a question there, or pontificate on the App Store redesign?
No. What was your reaction to it? I mean, did you feel like it addressed some needs, or is it just a new coat of paint? What was your impression?
I haven't looked too much at it. I saw the screenshots and everything. They talked about, to me, the more interesting thing was the slide that showed the 20 or 30 improvements that they've made in the App Store. Not the whole redesign, which is interesting, but it said 24-hour review times and single certificate for everything, so it's a lot easier to upload your software. And there were, like I said, 20 or 30 different things on there that I want to go back and look at and see, that might help us. That's more interesting to me than just, like you said, sort of a fresh coat of paint on the store. And it's certainly good for anybody who's in the store that they're trying on this, but I think they didn't necessarily touch on or focus on a lot of the underlying issues that you and I have talked about and many people have talked about, as far as a lack of upgrade pricing and a lack of trials, and they're certainly trying to do some things with that and with subscriptions and different models, but I think there's still a whole lot that's missing for a lot of existing developers, especially on the Mac, but on iOS as well, that a redesign does not really take care of underlying economic issues. Hopefully it will surface content better for people and make it so that people find the apps that they want, and apps that should be successful are successful. But I don't know that it's going to be a revolutionary change. I don't think it will be. So I was not too blown away by it. But I'm mostly, especially on the iOS App Store, I'm pretty much only there as a user. And I don't need them to say, here's the app of the day. I think a lot of us have a lot of apps on our phones that, we don't need a new app every single day. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's, like I said, it's good that they're trying. It's good that they don't just think, we've got it set and we don't need to change anything. But at the same time, I don't know that it's addressing a lot of the issues that we've discussed before. And that might be okay for Apple, and it might be okay for developers that aren't in the store and don't necessarily want to be, but I don't view it as big a deal as Apple made it out to be, I guess.
I keep trying to remember that this is a developers conference. That was a developers keynote. It felt at times like a consumer keynote, no question.
With the HomePod and the hardware and everything, yeah. But something like that is very much about developers. Right. But when you talk about the redesign, is that for developers or for users? Obviously, if users can find software, it's good for developers. But were they showing that so that developers would say, oh, okay, great, the store is going to be better? Or were they showing it so that users would say, oh, I'm going to check out those lists and see this curated content of what I should download? And I don't know. It was interesting. There was a lot of, like you said, you're trying to remember that it's a developers conference, and I think there were hints that it was, or obvious points that it was, and then sometimes when it was more aimed at consumers, the way it often is.
Well, Apple's just gotten to the point that anything it does, no matter how much they try to say this is a developers conference, they almost have to do something a little more public-facing.
Right, absolutely. Talking about hardware, and so that people see the headline and say, okay, what's Apple doing? Because so many people are paying attention to it, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're not a developer and they don't do any of that, then, well, this was a bust. And no, it's not a bust, it's just not for you. But, now everything has to be about everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right.
I know you have other things to do than just hang around here and talk to me, so thank you so much for the time. Anything coming out that you can talk about new with Rogue Amoeba, or do we have to wait until the next time you appear on the show?
Well, I'm always happy to appear on the show. I'm trying to think if we have anything particularly worth talking about. Just like you said, audio software that hopefully serves a lot of needs for people, but no, I don't need to pitch anything right now. Go to rogueamoeba.com.
Yeah, go to rogueamoeba.com.
See what you see.
Loopback, Audio Hijack,
Airfoil.
So there's a lot of great stuff there. Go check it out. Paul, good to see you. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you, Chuck.
Folks, more from San Jose and AltConf and WWDC. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.